Well, hello there, and welcome to episode 85 here at CUZZO-OP. I am one of the hosts here, Willie, also known as Arrow, and as usual, we have the other host of CUZZO-OP here, my cousin.
It's IV. Isaiah, what's good? Welcome to another episode, another Star Wars episode.
Another Star Wars episode. You know, IV said it. We gonna be there for Star Wars, whatever it is, whether it's backtracking or seeing what's new. And
or it's dog shit.
And he doesn't really believe that, because Isaiah has this mentality that he likes to do where he either loves it to a million or he's gonna talk shit about it. And then when you actually hear him out, he's in the middle somewhere. But you just gotta get past his initial statement. So that's where we are with the Acolyte. So the Acolyte dropped earlier this year. We took the summer to think about it, see what news came out about it. And now we are here to talk about it. So, I want to just dive in, bro. You know, this isn't necessarily going to be a long one. This is just going to be, it's going to be an interesting one to talk about our problems with the show, as well as what we may have liked. But I do want to start off with expectations, right? And I'll go off with me first. I wanted something, I'll say, new. We were going to a new timeline, or I guess I should say time period. We were going to the before Phantom Menace area where we were going to see a new era of Jedi and deal with new stories and new characters. And so I was just kind of like, oh, we're going to be supposedly following a Sith acolyte. Oh, this is supposed to eventually lead to the downfall of the Republic. Oh, okay, I'm in. And that's it. That's all my expectations kind of ever really were for the show. The trailers, I was like, the concept is cool, but I'm going to wait and see what happens. So yeah, that was me with this show.
You're wise, bro. You're wise. Not to get any hopes up. Just, you know, that's a posture that Arrow often has. Even if he's excited about a thing, he tries to keep his expectations tempered so that when he gets there, he can properly enjoy it. And I wish the internet had the ability to do that. You know what I mean? Because they're more like me, where it's very polarizing, where it's like all or nothing. And I think I'm not like that all the time. By the way, I would like to go back and correct you. It just has to do with things of entertainment. I could be like that, by the way. And especially if the entertainment, I can't help but have high standards for, because this is a universe that we are on record saying is the greatest universe alive. Like for me, I've said, like, y'all want to talk about MCU, you want to talk about DCEO or whatever, or whatever. I don't even know the phrasing for DC. All I know is that when it comes to universes, whether it's TV or we talking about some cinematic movies, Star Wars has had their foot on the necks of the universe concept for a long time. So it's like, what do you do? How do you create a show that is enticing? When Mandalorian came out, that was like, we weren't expecting that. We didn't even know we wanted it the way we wanted it. And Favreau and Filoni made us want it, you know? So now we're coming out, even Andor, that's how people were feeling. So when this show was getting announced, my expectations, to get back to the question, was one of, hey man, there's a lot of power players doing what you're doing in a TV series. And we see some dog shit stuff come from Disney Plus, even just this year or last year with Secret Invasion and stuff like that. So I was like, I don't want no Secret Invasion quality. I need you to keep honoring that Star Wars, bro, please. If the Jedi Adventures that my daughter watch can be fire sometimes, there's no way, there's no reason to fold unless you Disney-fy this shit. So let's talk about it, man. Let's talk about these expectations, bro. Let's talk about the way that these expectations were met or subverted, bro.
All right. For me, the biggest thing that I walked out of the Acolyte with was this felt like a movie, maybe for the first time in the Disney Star Wars universe on Disney Plus, stretched out to be a TV show. We felt that for Marvel on quite a few shows. But I think this might be the first time through and through for Star Wars. Oh, episode 3's ending kind of felt like a nice 35-minute mark of a movie if they had chopped some bits off. Oh, this is the middle of the movie. Oh, this is where that movie would have ended. And then this is the feeling that I'm coming out of each episode.
Right.
Which is weird because the pacing is, we're extending it to be TV. but I'm feeling like you're extending it a little bit too much. I feel where you've extended it. It would have been cleaner if you cut up some bits here and expanded on some bits there. And that was an interesting feeling for me overall to just experience a television show. Because at Marvel, you know, it's always felt grand. Oh, this is a movie. Falcon and Winter Soldier, this is a movie as a TV show. We see, but this was a feeling I had felt deep inside of me while watching this show that I had never felt before. So I guess pacing wise is where I'm kind of leading this conversation. It was awkward. It was awkward. And also as a mystery show that it wanted to be, predictable. It was predictable. You know, you were able to call what was going to happen in the third episode that was going to come back around in the seventh episode. But you know what's real funny to talk about what you said earlier about the people on the internet? As predictable as this show was in terms of its pacing, you got a lot of people online that don't know how to sit, shut the hell up, and just wait. Because I guess they don't know how to predict television shows. So when they watch an episode of TV, they have, that was that? Oh, that shit is ass. Like, bro, you can't tell that this is going to come back around in 4 episodes. You're not going to even wait to see that boot drop. No, did you see what they said here? It's not going to happen that way. And then it happens. And I'm like, so I guess, you know, I'm saying all these things. It's predictable. But then dummies on the internet don't do it. So I guess nobody wins, because if I'm asking for more, but people on the internet can't even handle the simplicity and predictable shit, then what are you going to do, bro?
Right.
So what do you think of the pacing, bro?
Yeah, I feel like that's a really, when you said that the first time to me, I was like, yeah, that's a really good way to put it. And I think it just leaves you jarred, man. It just leaves you jarred. And pace is so important, bro. I just think that, you know, some people may not acknowledge that or know that to be the case. Well, let me just let you know. It's extremely important. It's important in the ability to do a surprising reveal, to deepen a mystery. You know, like when you watch a horror flick or you watch a thriller, a thriller is literally a manipulation of pace and using pace to shock the viewer. And I feel like they did a poor job of respecting that dynamic in this show. And that only conclusion you could have is that maybe it wasn't intended to always be the format that it was in. And if so, then somebody needs to be fired, bro. I'm going to be absolutely honest with you. That's how I feel. I know it might seem pretty strong, but it's like, they can't do this again, bro. I really don't think that this works. It's either make the film or make the television show. Either make the film or make the limited series. And if you're going to do that, then we will have the room and the proper pacing from the beginning to let these points breathe, for us to know these characters a lot deeper, to actually give two craps about these characters. I think the pacing is part of what led me to not care. I'll be honest. I care about the world. I care about what they're talking about. I care about the points, even when it comes to May, you know what I mean? And Osha. I feel like that concept is important for us to know of. It's just unfortunate that these really cool concepts were not properly stewarded pace-wise.
Right. And I think that also lies in the hands of Disney, as well as creatives being afraid to go against the mouse. I mean,
the mouse.
You know, Disney is, they some little bitches is what I really want to say.
Say that then. So say
they
it like
some little
that
bitches
then.
right now.
Say it straight.
And they just are afraid to commit to anything out of fear of failure. And because of that, they're costing their projects. And then it's all of a sudden not on them. And which is why I give Tony Gilroy, the creator of the Andor television show, his props. Because he told them, I'm making my show and it's going to be 2 seasons. And if you don't give me my 2 seasons, I'm not making my show. And so it was agreed upon that no matter what happened with Andor season 1, his show was going to be 2 seasons. And he's getting his 2 seasons. That didn't happen here. They want it to be. You can tell by what happens on the show. They want it to be 2 seasons, but they never got the green light. So they had to do that thing where the television show clearly is going on, but it also needs to wrap up in case it's over.
Yes.
And that hurt the show.
Back. Yeah.
And it hurt the show. It held them back.
Yeah.
Because now all they can do is drop pebbles and hope that someone can come along and pick those pebbles up. But if it's not, it's okay. And that's what the show did. And it's unfortunate because the show is canceled at this point, which is something we'll get into later about why I think that's a total misstep on Disney's on Disney's side, executively, or whatever we want to call it, on their business side.
Yeah.
But yeah, the way this show is paced, it was just so strange, especially as a mystery. Like, the mystery aspect of this show wasn't anything crazy, to be honest. You have a character who you're kind of sitting in front of right now that was predictable off off rip.
From rip.
And yet that wasn't necessarily the biggest mystery to the show, in my opinion. And even that big mystery, the overall why is these characters doing what they're doing, nothing for me. I can sit here and say, oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh yeah, it's right for that character, but that doesn't mean for me it went well.
Right.
So let's talk about some of these characters. And so let's also talk about their acting.
Yeah.
So you brought up May and Osha, and so I want to get ahead of the game right now, and I'm going to say what I got to say.
Please talk about Amandla.
Amandla, unfortunately, received a lot of hate for her role in The Acolyte due to the obvious reasons. We see it online. She's talked about it online, and people online have come to even bash her even further, to say terrible things. Why? Because she's a woman, because she's black, because all these things. And that's terrible. Like, that's corny. And I think the way she's been able to handle it so far is stellar. I personally, in regards to what was put out there on the show, didn't have much care for how the character was portrayed. I've liked Amandla in other areas and other movies that I've seen her in. So I could she have been part of the reason behind the issues that I had here? Absolutely. But she's not a bad actress. So no. I know that it is more than just that. So that's my opinion on Amandla. I maybe like the way she played Osha a little bit more than May until somewhere around the middle. Once the switch started happening, then it just kind of was like, So yeah.
Yeah, I think it just felt like Liv and Maddie from Disney Channel. You know?
I didn't watch that show, so you won't have to explain
Liv and Maddie
that.
is. It's a TV sitcom set, and there's two actresses that are playing, and one actress that's playing two characters that are twins. And, it's just like, it does require a lot of, I was having a conversation with somebody about this. I'm going to get to her. I promise. Just hear me out. Tom Hardy is playing Tom Hardy's character and Venom in the Venom movies. He's talking to himself in the studio. Like it takes talent to be able to do that. You know what I mean? It's not easy. I don't feel like any of us could all do that. Like maybe, but so I got to give Amandla her props in that regard. She's got a tough feat, and she's the core point of the show. What's it called? I can't remember what they use the phrase to describe, this splintered, born by the Force character. I can't remember the phrase that they use by Star Wars terminology. Do you remember what it's called?
If you're referring to the Acolyte or like the Rise of Skywalker.
No, there's a word. I can't remember. Maybe I'll figure it out later. But the idea of playing this splintered being, born by the Force in the way that she is, I do think that concept is so crazy because it's literally a nexus point for the balance between light and dark in this universe. And that's what this all is about, right? Star Wars. It's not just about the wars of the different planets. It's about the war of light and dark that happens within the stars. So it's like, it's a hard thing to live up to play such a special character. And so that's where I'll give her props. I'm like, okay, you had a tough task ahead of you. Nonetheless, when I look at the concept and I look at her acting, I'm not impressed, bro. I just wasn't impressed. I wasn't impressed with a lot of what she did. I think that she didn't have a lot to work with. Maybe it was the script. Maybe it was the actors around her. Maybe it was just the mouse, like you said. But she was cool. Like, she was decent. You know what I mean? And her surprise, the surprise that we were revealed even a couple episodes in, there's a couple of surprises that they had us, but this whole idea of like, oh, it's not her, it's her twin. When they see each other, you know what I mean? It's just not, if you're not going to treat it special and come off special, then I'm not going to see it as special. I'm not going to give you a Star Wars pass. That's not happening.
Yeah. So I got a hot take, bro.
Talk to
completely unrelated to the Acolyte. That little playing this different character thing, I think the best I've seen it done. You gonna call me crazy potentially, bro? Is it Lindsay Lohan in The Parent Trap?
That's a goated opinion. That's a goated opinion. She was cooking. That's a classic.
That's all I gotta say. You said, is it the actors around here? And I'm like, nah. Because I think most of the people that was surrounding her were good. And I want to bring up my personal favorite / maybe second favorite character from the show, Soul, Master Soul.
Yeah.
I believe his name is
Lee Jung-jae.
Yeah, Lee Jung-jae. From Squid Games. I thought he was fantastic as Master Soul. I think he brought, the heart to the character, and I think like another talking shit to the internet. Oh, he don't know how to act. No, he actually learned his role in English to speak it. And I think it all comes down to just accents. People love to fall in love with the Spanish accent or the Jamaican accent, but the Japanese, he don't know how to act.
Yeah.
They
fetishize certain things, but they don't want to. Yeah, it's racist, bro. There really is no other way to put it. Let's just keep it a stiggity.
Right.
You know what I mean?
He did fantastic. Racist. I think the writing around his character, in some ways was new and in some ways was also kind of like, again, predictable. But because of his performance, I think it elevated the simplicity of it to be interesting to watch on his end of the master torn on the inside who did something wrong because of his own selfish reasonings and now is facing the repercussions for it. So I love Master Soul and his connection to Osha. And then on the flip side, we get to see his connection to Jackie, played by Daphne Keane, who I thought she was fantastic.
Right.
And she was probably my second or third favorite character on the show, depending on what order you really want to follow me in. I thought to see how he cared for Osha and then how he cares for his next apprentice afterwards in light of that was really interesting because they were still master and apprentice, but you could tell there was something there and that connection to Osha that was just different.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Soul's impact on the word that people were using is children conceived by the Force, or is it a Force dyad? That's also a phrase people have been using.
Yeah. I don't know about the dyad because I know that that's a bit different, but
I don't know. All I know is this idea of one person's consciousness ending up in two different bodies. The way that they're painting this, you got to think about this really quick. Like Luke, Leia. The idea of siblings connected in the Force and this idea of like two people, these two ideas. I feel like they lazily attempted to make commentary on the Star Wars universe, which can juxtaposition itself with tons of different meaningful moments within the Star Wars universe. And I just feel like that's why, as much as Soul's acting or Lee's acting was cool, all of these actors are going to be looked at no matter how well they did, including Daphne. I didn't even know it was Daphne until I looked back and said, oh shit, that's Daphne. That's crazy. I just feel like the show wasn't a good stage for any of these actors at the end of the day. And so that's why I have a hard time speaking to it. There are a couple of actresses that I just really didn't care for also. Like I didn't care for Rebecca Henderson as Vernestra.
Well, I really didn't. I wanted to talk about her because she's married to the creator of the show. And
yeah, talk about that. Talk about nepotism. Talk about it.
That felt like nepotism to me because I didn't like her at all. And nepotism, I want to quickly shout out as it's not always a bad thing, in my opinion. We have some great actors who recognize that they've had opportunities that they probably wouldn't have had without their parents. Shout outs to Jack Quaid. But I just think in this particular scenario, watching her character, every time she was on screen, number one, I thought she looked ass. I'm going to just point that out. I thought she just looked
garbage.
Trash.
Poops.
But then the acting from it, I was just like, that's the take? Okay.
Oh,
she was one that I would say was bad. Like, that was bad.
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah,
Who else
but
you
what
ain't
did you
care
think
about
about
though?
Charlie Barnett? Like,
I like
I
Charlie
wanted
Barnett.
Yord to be. I guess it's because of the writing of Yord. Like, I bet Charlie could cook. You know what I mean? I bet he could cook. I don't know, man's from. I haven't seen him in anything else. I literally don't know him from Adam, to be honest. Like,
Okay.
but I feel like Yord in this whole like, oh, but the order's supposed to be these things, and we rise to these grand occasions. Nah. Like, I know why a character like that needed to exist in a show like this, which is going to give commentary to, are the Jedi actually good people? Like, I love that he existed as a concept, but his writing, I don't know if it was his writing or if it was the actor just misunderstood. I don't know.
Yord got a lot of hate very quickly because of his attitude and everything of the sorts, right? And I was like, yo, this dude is freaking annoying the hell out of me. But then around the third episode, I came around and I said to myself, you know what? And people are going to disagree with me just because I'm bringing their favorite into the conversation. But he's my favorite too. Episode 1, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yord are the same character. The same character. Yeah. We never got to see Yord push past the moment where everything he thought and knew was thrown back into his face.
Maybe he would have been more interesting.
Obi-Wan, we got that experience. He fought the Sith Lord. He beat the Sith Lord. His master died, and now he has this new responsibility. Yord, I was kind of hoping he would be left alive after the skirmish that we got to talk about in a few, because it would have been interesting to see his character face both the consequences of the Sith are alive, as well as this is all happening because of a corruption and secrets of the Jedi. What does that change about my opinion of the Order? So I think his naivety and his just dedication to the Jedi, again, like you said, it was important, and I did appreciate its role. Was it a bit cheesy, slapsticky at certain times? Like when he's ironing his robes and Jackie comes in and she's like, put your shirt on. He's like, oh, okay. Yeah. But at the end of the day, once I made that connection of he's just a naive Jedi that has yet to have experience, I was like, okay, I enjoy it. And then when what happened to him, I was like, oh, we ain't getting any more. Got it.
No, which is maybe, bro, one of the reasons why I get the polarizing is I start at the polarizing and then I backtrack by deepening, and this doesn't have a lot of depth to it. So that's part of why I have a hard time. It's like that. What you just said is a perfect example of that. Like, all we got was what we got. There's no nuance to that concept outside of his existence in this story. So, yeah, bro, he was whatever to me, man. I love homegirl, what's her name? Carrie-Anne Moss coming as Master Indara. I love Carrie-Anne Moss.
She's always great.
Always great. Whenever I see her doing anything, she's always goated. And what do you think? What do you think about The Stranger, bro? What do you think about Manny?
He's 1 or 2 in terms of my favorite. I thought Manny did a great job. I don't know about you. I think that
there's a reason why he's the background.
He is, the Yoda character in the start, where he is pretending to be something he's not. And then when he shows up like that and we get to kind of dive in deep in him, you just want to stay with it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And there are some areas where the creators was speaking about how his portrayal, and like they have a scene where he's shirtless coming out of the water, and she was kind of trying to sell home the point that the dark side is a seductive presence.
Yes.
That it's not something that just grips you, it seduces you. And she was trying to sell that point. So I know people out there that was seduced by Manny Jacinto. But I gotta say, and specifically like episode 5, there's a lot there where I was like, he's cooking. And then in the following episodes where I'm like, yo, he's making some good points. But it's just, again, back to, some of shared scenes. It's like, but I wish that other end of that scene kept it up just a little bit, just a tad bit.
Just a tiny bit.
But he was fantastic. He's actually might be one of my favorite recent additions to Star Wars in terms of a character based on look, what they showed up and did, and then the acting performance.
So let's talk high level here, bro. Let's talk high level, because I know there are other actors. I don't know if you have more that you want to talk about. Do you have any more?
Not really particularly. I mean, we know that Jodie Turner-Smith played the mother, and she was around. I didn't mind. I did not mind her. I thought she was all right. Dean Charles Chapman was Torben. I know him from Game of Thrones. He was also one of the main characters in the movie 1917. So I know him from there. He was good. He was cool here. He knew how to choreograph. Also, we'll hit that later too, because that's a big part of the show. But let's talk big. What do you want to talk about? What is it that you want to say?
I just think like the other thing is, for my posture towards Star Wars is if you're going to make a show and you're going to deepen or go back in time or just give us some more deepening of these concepts, then I think it's got to be worth it. Me personally. I mean, I don't necessarily, let's take it back to my earlier conversation about the kids show, the Jedi Adventures. Like for me, Young Jedi Adventures make sense because they're just Young Jedi and we're making a kids show. That's it. It's really as simple as that. This is just, we live for the Force and we live It's innocent, right? But then when you know the full grasp of the Jedi Order and you understand that these kids grow up to either get killed or are living for an order that, like, you know, isn't as pure and clean as and light and innocent as you think, like, it isn't a commentary. It's just designed for kids, but we have an older view. What this show felt like they wanted to, hey, let's really make a hardcore commentary on the idea of the Jedi and the Force and what light is and what good is. And I feel like we've got Tales of the Jedi. We've got Tales of the Empire, and they do that way better than this show did. And they're smaller episodes, they're animated episodes, and they understand what needs to be spoken to and how nuance can be added to that. I just felt like there wasn't a lot of nuance in this show. It was just straight like that. And when you have a show that's straight like that and it doesn't have good pacing, the acting isn't stupendous, it's not written too well, you've got a recipe for disaster, bro. And I think that's why I rate this show so lowly. I'm not saying it's like never watch it in your life. If you're a Star Wars person and you want to consume everything Star Wars wise, then okay, make sure you consume this. It's a part of history now. But I just felt like high level, that was something I noticed 2 episodes, not even one end of the first episode, 2 episodes in, I'm like, shit. 3rd episode, I'm like, crap. 4th episode, I'm like, saw that coming, but damn it. 5th episode, I'm like, by the time you get to the 8th episode, bro, and you get to the final showdown, you're just like, all right, let's see what they freaking do. Maybe they could, at the buzzer, hit a shot that'll make me go, it was worth it. It wasn't worth it to me. You know what I mean? I just didn't feel like it was, especially when you have a Tales of Jedi that does it better, especially when you have an Andor. I haven't even seen Andor, but I know the mature angle that they're coming from is one that even in its description is a lot deeper in its nuance than this show was trying to get off. And, you know, one of the shows that really makes me think about is Ahsoka. I think Ahsoka did a lot of what this show was trying to do way better than the show did. You know, Grey Jedi, what's right, what's wrong, making your way back to the Force, becoming someone who walks on both sides and understands both sides, why you need to understand both sides, to grieve the thing that your master fell into, the temptation and the seduction. We've seen so many different Star Wars iterations. Even if we talk about Survivor and Fallen Order from a video game perspective, they're already doing this dialogue. So I just felt like this show, why do you exist? That's what I'm asking the whole time I'm watching. Why does this exist?
Right.
You know?
So from my perspective, number one, I want to say that the show ended where I thought it would begin, with the character of Osha and the stranger being together. The show was trying to portray how does the order crumble within, and what does the dark side have to do with it? What manipulation tactics did the dark side do? And it seems like that's where season 2 would have pivoted to a lot more. It feels like this was all set up for what they maybe wanted the actual show to be. In terms of its entirety, I liked the show, but we're not getting a season 2 anymore. And that being said, now that that's not the case, is it worth it? No, it's not. Watch it. I think everyone that's a Star Wars fan should watch it, because I do think there are things here to appreciate. But in terms of it being worth, no. If they weren't gonna dedicate the whole shit, they shouldn't have done it in the first place.
Yeah.
the whole thing with the twins and them being one soul, two bodies, for me, people were crying. What do you mean they were made by the Force? Well, they were actually made by the mother, manipulating the Force. Like, they compared it to Anakin, which is why a lot of people started hating. What? They're trying to make Anakin? They're doing this woke shit? No, dumbass. Anakin was made by the Force. The Force made it. Oh, but no. The Force made Anakin Skywalker. The Force was used as a tool to help create these twins. You could maybe argue that this is some inspiration that maybe will later down the line make someone go looking for that topic. But it's that false prophecy that the Jedi have been following, believing, and making their way here. And that's how they got into this fucked up situation. But the twins being the same shit as Anakin Skywalker, stop it. Because they're not even anywhere near as powerful as that motherfucker, bro. Like, let's relax. I liked the Carrie-Ann Moss sequences involving her and her facing her squad and saying, yo, y'all messed up, but I'm going to cover for you, because it makes some of those Jedi a bit more human. It's an exact opposite to Yord. It's like, this is a master who's seen some shit and she's going to try and keep it on the low. I found that interesting as a secret to the Jedi that a Senate could use to expose the corruption. I like David Harewood a lot. I was upset that he only showed up at the end to play that senator and that's it. But yeah, I don't know, because now they also introduced that concept that the Stranger was also a Jedi, and that means they would have dived into that mess, and we're not getting that either. What I thought was really cool about that last episode was our first time seeing a very important character to the Star Wars mythos in live action. I don't even know if you would know that character unless you research some things after the show. When the Stranger is walking out of the cave and then the can comes out from behind the darkness, and do you know who that is? Or
Darth something.
Darth Plagueis. Who's Palpatine's master that he goes on a ramble about in episode 3. And it's like, oh, so that's also a question I would have liked to have answered. Is the Stranger working for Plagueis, or is Plagueis just a master in the shadows waiting to strike? Is he even a master in the shadows? So there are things here that I'm like upset about that won't get answered. And it's going to lead me into that conversation of like, Disney, I think this was a season of television that wasn't worth being canceled. I think this was a season of television worth dissecting, breaking down, figuring out the weaknesses, and coming back stronger for a season 2. I think season 1 is a 6 or 7. Like, being made wise, a 6, enjoyment 7. It's like that. But so was Clone Wars season 1, low key. Like, Rebels season 1, some would argue, is even like, oh, they saw season 2 with 3 and 4 and they elevated it from what season 1 was when it was originally appearing on Disney Plus. What happened to that Lucasfilm and that Disney that was able to look at the things that they start with, and instead of backtracking and doing a whole bunch of shit, just continue it better?
I think that it exists. I just think that the stage is grander. I think the stage never does anything good for art and for creativity. I think that the reality is the bigger the stage, the more the pressure and the less the authenticity in the room to grow and create something better, especially because finances are tied to the stage. So they weren't happy with the performance of the show. They're going to clip it, even if it's a great thing. And we've seen so many shows, whether it's in Star Wars or outside of Star Wars, so many movies inside Star Wars, outside of Star Wars, that deserved further storytelling that could honestly save the first film and make it better because of how it could be built off, or the first season. And it doesn't happen, man. And it doesn't happen. But so it goes back to what you said about the mouse, bro.
With your money talk, it's like, we know that the people providing the money also had their fingers in areas that they didn't need to.
Right.
And then they can let go when the time has come to talk about how bad something is. So they could hold on to it, and then when it's easy for them, they could let go. And that's what feels like the Acolyte.
It reminds me of like working at a company, and it's like a company where they're like, oh, you got a good idea? Okay, go try that idea. And if it works, we'll come take credit for it and back you up. But if you fail, it'll be a failure that just looks like you did it, because I don't want to be associated with that mess. And that happens on the day-to-day in a corporate setting. And that's what this is, a corporation L. And when the corporation runs the creativity, it's not creativity. It's just biz. It's just business. And I would prefer as a Star Wars fan, which I think is filled with heart and authenticity and human stories, keep that shit as far as possible away from what we got going on over here, please. If it's not passing Filoni's desk, keep that shit over there. Me personally.
Well, Filoni is now the head of the creativity process over there, but you know, people have their problems with Filoni too, and there are people that think that things like this or need to stay away from him. And it's my opinion that let him just give his thoughts, but also like let Dave just pass good ideas. Like, I don't think everything necessarily needs to be Dave Filoni-fied, but I would like it if someone that was studying under George Lucas just said like, oh yeah, that fits. You know, and supposedly he gave some ideas over onto this show. Supposedly he passed some things down, but this was in the making for a long time.
Yeah, a long time. Yeah, and I think you got to remember Squid Game popped off in 2020. Like, it popped off 2020, 2021. So when they got my mans and they brought him in as Soul, it was off of the hype of that shit. Oh, we'd love for you to, and that's what hooked them up. That means 2021 till 2024. This has been cooking amidst all these things. And in between that time, Ahsoka popped off. And between that time, you know, a lot of commentary about Disney's move of Star Wars has cooked up. So these are kind of like, we got these in the locker. We got to let them out.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what happens in time. But I'm not saying I want everything Filoni-fied. I'm not saying that. I am just saying whoever was in the cutting room, like in the writing room, and being like, this is a great idea, they should get fired. That's
I don't think they should be fired. I don't think the idea was good. I think the idea
I don't know. If I was in the room and they were like, yo, what if we do this idea with this kind of like forced dyad idea and talk about the corruption of the Jedi Order and how it's not just that the dark side is strong, but that the Jedi were politically incorrect in so many ways. It left portals and opened doors for the dark side to come and seduce its members. Let's do that. And I would have looked at them and been like, oh, you mean like the way that the prequels go into you mean like the things they tried to expound on when we used to
right.
Oh, you mean like what they already?
I think the fold was having the Jedi be such prominent characters on this show, when in reality it should have been the focus off the dark side.
Yes, I think
Master Soul shouldn't have been the main character. Osha shouldn't have been. It should have been. So it's the execution of the idea that I think messed up.
Yeah, I think they should have had us in a posture where it almost is like when you choose the dark side of Infamous. Shout out to Infamous. And it's like everything that is protagonist actually comes off as antagonist because the protagonist is the bad guys. I think that would have been a really great angle, way better angle than this. And there isn't a lot of that. We have the Tales of the Empire. We see the brokenness, but to really have a live action take on that fully from the jump would have been cool. I think that would have given it an extra point or two on my side, just off the fire of that. But hey, man.
Listen, I want to talk about something that the show deserves its credit for, absolutely, though. And I'm looking at you because we haven't talked about it. The choreography of the show. Especially in episode 5.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
I think there's layers to choreography that people ignore. And so looking at Manny Jacinto, the way he plays the stranger, I love it. The way that he fights and the way he moves as like a user of the Force. He kind of like holds his saber, and I have a bunch of sabers and I didn't prep one to showcase right now, but like holding like a PlayStation controller, like Jedi will fight like this, but he was like diving and spearing you and then like moving so awkwardly in his movements that it was interesting to watch. Or like his head tilts and the way he would just kind of swing and then like dodge. He turned up. And then you find out when he was wearing that mask, he can't see much. So he was just kind of
closing his eyes and flowing.
And it was smooth, like butter. Mm-hmm. Plus the helmet and his bracer being cortosis, which is a material that like shorts out lightsabers made for some amazing visuals, in my opinion, as well. When he's banging it, sparks are flying and all that. I thought that was fantastic. And then we have Lee as Soul, who, you know, he's a martial artist. So he's out there and they're going hand to hand looking very well. Then you throw in Daphne and she's doing well. I think, in my opinion, the best dual wielding live action we've seen ever.
Yeah, I agree.
And so episode 5 was stunning. He was also snapping necks, dude. Like straight up.
Brutal.
You know?
It was pretty brutal, yeah.
And I thought it was fantastic.
Brutal too.
Yeah, absolutely. Which we also got to see a bleeding saber, which was interesting to see outside of the, you know, Jedi Survivor.
Yeah. That was.
But I did want to just, again, shout out that choreography because it is one of the best things, if not the best thing, to come from the show. Like, here's proof that it can be done. And people were hating on it. Oh, but it's not like shut the hell up, bro. This was amazing to watch. Straight up. I was in awe of episode 5. Just most of it just being that running through the woods, fighting, actually going. Like, it doesn't feel like they're just aiming for the... No, he's aiming for the kill shot. So when he stabbed 3 times, you're like, oh, shit.
Oh, he's really trying to kill him.
Or
right.
When, you know, Soul is hitting him with the end of the saber or just straight up headbutting using his hands. Fantastic. Episode 2, Soul does a lot of disarming moves where he's just kind of flowing. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. So shout outs to whoever did that. Were they needed on the sequel trilogy? No, I don't think so. Because I still believe that the sequel fights being what they were was purposeful. You know, they weren't aiming to be what the freaking prequels were. But I like this. So if we could get something else on this kind of live action area soon, I would like it. Yes.
Yeah. I'm not quitting on live action by any means. You know what I mean? I think there are a lot of things from a pacing and a writing standpoint that they can fix, but you're right. I think that outside of Homegirl and how she looked, what's her name? I feel like the show looked good. The fighting looked good. It just felt like a lot of high level production for a story that was always wobbly from the beginning, and the telling that was wobbly. So, what's your final rating? You said you give it a 6 or 7.
It depends. Like, as a made show, a 6, but my enjoyment by the end of it was a 7. It's not my least favorite Star Wars show. Live action wise, it's not. I might even have 2 under it. But
wow.
Yeah. Is it the worst made one? I still don't think so. I think it might be like second, but I enjoyed the show what it is.
What's under it then?
Book of Boba Fett. Easily. Like, easily.
Even the episode 5 and 6 don't say.
No, episode 5 and 6 are 2 of the greatest Star Wars episodes ever. But as a full, no, because I think it's also what makes the show not as good as some of the other ones. Because you broke your pacing up so bad. And that's a conversation that we may be doing next year, as we said, for May. But, yeah, no. In terms of a TV show, Book of Boba Fett is under.
The other one, you said there was 2.
Maybe. Come back to me. And talking about favorites, come back to me later. I'm not ready for that. I'm not saying favorite.
I'm just saying you said it was not. There might be 2 underneath this one.
But in the favorite department.
I don't know, bro. For me personally, I don't really see Book of Boba for what you're saying too far off from where this show. I give this like a 5. Me personally, 5 or 6, somewhere around there. But those episode 5 and 6 really are still a part of Book of Boba, and as much as it's a very, very, very thin line, loose connection to what Boba's story actually is in that show, because of those 2 episodes with Mando, like, it's not below this from a writing posture still for me. Also because we're coming off the tail end of Boba's presence in season 2 of Mando.
Right.
So that's also why I give it a little bit more credit. It's kind of like it's a fading out of a storyline. This is from the rip, like born from the beginning, like IP, almost like a new IP in the universe type vibe. And I was just like, damn it. You're going to put effort toward a live action new IP. You better freaking cook like Andor's cooking. That's how I feel, because it's new and I want more of that.
Right.
And that's why I guess, maybe I did come in with more expectations than I thought I did. But yeah, man, I feel like I'm excited to see where they'll go. It's not stopping me from watching Star Wars. It's not stopping me from being tuned into live action shit
and
from them.
Let me tell you the truth. It's not stopping anybody. No matter how many people go on the internet and say they're done, you will always see their thoughts. You will always see their YouTube videos about reacting and watching the next episode. You'll always see the complaints that they send to the actors, and you always see them bitching about how it's not their fault the way that people are taking it in the show.
Right.
If you don't like it, stop watching. The next Star Wars project that we're probably going to be talking about is the new one with Jude Law, right?
Yeah. I'm excited for that one. What's it called? The something crew?
Skeleton Crew.
Yeah. Skeleton Crew.
Yeah.
It's only like 3 episodes, right? Or 2 episodes?
What? No.
I'm pretty sure. Isn't it like a 2-part? Like a limited series?
No, I'm pretty. It's gonna. I think it's not that, bro.
Okay.
It's not that. It's not 2 episodes.
Skeleton Crew.
It's not 2 episodes.
I'm looking it up live on the set.
You can look it up, bro. All I gotta say is, trailer looks interesting, and we'll be tapping in for that. I will get IV to watch Andor so we can talk about it before Andor season 2. I'm gonna even try to work something specifically special out for that show, because that show has one of the best Star Wars episodes that I've seen in it also. But I've got to push for that. I got to push.
You're definitely right. It's 8 episodes, but 2 are dropping when it comes out in December 3rd.
Okay. So you can expect that from us next year. And then, we don't really know what's after.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Yeah.
Andor.
But Andor season 2 and Skeleton Crew, what's after? You know, we have some movies that are maybe up in the air, but we know Star Wars Celebration is next year. So, I mean, we'll have to probably cover that. And, overall, for Acolyte, it's a shame.
We need that Mandalorian and Grogu movie. You know what I mean? That would be tough. I don't know, man. I at this point, I know I'm biased. When you look into the heart of this universe and you've seen it and it's brought tears to your eyes, you're immediately connected to such a deep, to the Force, no pun intended. And yeah, bro, you don't want to see something that is forced, no pun intended. You want to see something that fits into the flow of things. And I think that's an expectation that's hard to let go of. So I recommend to everyone, listen, bro, if you feel like your standards need to stay standards because we need to keep calling the mouse to a higher place, then I respect you freedom fighters, you.
I mean, it's important to call them out. It's important to call them out when they're doing bad, but
let's not forget the fact that these actors are humans and that they go out and they do what they can with what they're given. Big round of applause to them for trying with what they were given. Yeah, man, we'll see what's next for us. Stay tuned to what we got going on. We got more episodes coming out for the rest of the year. We've got Halloween right around the corner. We've got something cooking for you when it comes to maybe some Cape Crusader. Let's talk about it. And also, we got Christmas and stuff coming up at the end of the year too. And you know how we do here at CUZZO-OP. We're gonna celebrate. We're gonna celebrate some way, somehow.
Yeah. New York Comic-Con is this weekend. So if there's any news, you can bet we'll cover it. And if there's not much news, well.
We still probably will talk about it. We'll keep it short and sweet. But just know every time you tap in with us, we're going to give you a breath of what's going on in the fresh air and life of entertainment, what's going on in movies, what's going on TV, what's going on with video games. And know every time that you tap into an episode of CUZZO-OP, you're going to find 3 things. That's 2 cousins, 1 podcast, and endless entertainment. Until next time.